I'm Lisa Taylor, president of Challenge Factory. Hidden Talent is a Challenge Factory podcast. Challenge Factory is grateful for the support of Veterans Affairs Canada through the Veteran and Family Wellbeing Fund.
Challenge Factory believes you should meet the changing world of work head on and take control of your future. Is your business prepared for the future of work? Well, this podcast series, along with the Challenge Factory Masterclass in Hiring and our Canadian Guide to Hiring Veterans, will help you do just that. Enjoy the show.
I'm Erin Trafford, and in this episode of Hidden Talent, we explore the concepts of introductions and identities.
I left the military back in 2010. My military service was 6 years regular and 4 years reserve.
But does that focus on military service help or hinder a vet's opportunities and job prospects when transitioning to a civilian career? Does it help someone like Chris Stoyles distinguish his resume in the eyes of private sector recruiters? Or does it make him talent hiding in plain view?
They get advice and guidance that they should be civilianizing their resume, their documents, the way that they interview. So they're getting cues that they should suppress that part of their identity. It's problematic for so many reasons. First, because they are a veteran and military service will always be a part of who they are, and they should be able to be proud of that in public as well as in private. The other reason why it's problematic is because if you actually are looking to hire a veteran, it's really likely that you know veterans and you don't even realize that they're within your midst.
Lisa Taylor, president of Challenge Factory, says when those first introductions are between a military veteran and a civilian employer, what could be seen as a typical or standard hiring practice where the two people chat about past experience, education, skills, can sometimes result in misaligned communications, misunderstood talent, and sweaty palm job interviews for everyone involved. So you can see how the unintended culture clash can happen early on in the hiring process.
It's just really important to understand that where they're coming from was a very structured, very organized, very leadership-heavy organization.
A cultural misunderstanding leads to an immediate communications breakdown. That becomes all the more complicated when you layer bias and misperceptions into the mix. What do you think of when I say military veteran?
I think of, grandpa. I think of old guys from World War II.
Janine Harris is an entrepreneur with a video production and media company.
But as soon as I said it, I'm like, I know I'm completely wrong about that because anybody who has been in the service would be a vet now, right? Isn't that how this works? So they could be 28-year-old vets, but in my mind, they're 80-year-old. So it never even came into my head as a consideration for an area to look.
Listening to Janine realize that she had that misconception is such an important moment for all employers to really give some thought to of what do you think a veteran actually is, and how does that bias whether you're inclined or not inclined to see that as a target group that you might want to take a look at and target for hiring?
I think that's very true. I think in Canada, we don't really have a great understanding as a country what our military does.
Sarah Dunkley runs 2 medium-sized businesses in Ontario.
And I would even go so far as to say, we don't have an appreciation or any understanding of the kind of challenges that they're stepping into and situations that are very, very difficult.
Now, Sarah brings an important perspective on bias and misperceptions of military service. Her husband was a reservist.
If people use the perception of what they're hearing in the news and the stereotypes about military service people, if they apply those stereotypes to every person who's a part of the military when they're doing their interview process, they're really doing a disservice to those candidates.
And I'll take it one step farther. If you have biases about a group like veterans, what's the chance that you have other biases about other groups that are just a little trickier to explore? We can have aha moments in public about not realizing the profile of a veteran. That would be something that would be seen as less politically correct, to have that kind of aha moment about other populations. But I think it serves as a good warning sign that we all have all different kinds of biases and misconceptions about all different hidden talent pools. And so that aha moment is such a powerful moment, not only because it flips her thinking and gets her to see this population of talent that's sitting right there that she could be taking advantage of, but also leads to a deeper question of, where is bias getting in the way of how she finds talent across the board?
Now remember, this episode of Hidden Talent is about introductions and identity. And so far, we've only really dealt with preliminary introductions, qualifying candidates based on resumes or recommendations. But there's a third I that goes with intros and identity: the interview. No matter what side of the table you find yourself on, the interview may be the most challenging part of the job search and hiring process. It's all the more stressful for a vet looking to land a job after military life.
Oftentimes when veterans are in their interview, that may actually be the very first business meeting they've ever taken with a civilian in a job interview.
The transition itself is a very nerve-wracking, anxiety-filled time in that person's life, because he's deciding to step away from something that he was likely really good at, maybe likely enjoyed, but just wanted to do something else with his life.
So if you can think about what a job interview feels like, and now imagine that's actually the first business interaction that you're having outside of the military or outside of what you know, just how much added pressure gets added to that.
Loss of words, right? Fumble. Anxious, nervous, sweating. Okay, they want specific questions about me when we normally don't talk about ourselves.
My heart went out to him, and I could imagine exactly what that was like for him sitting in that room. When Chris was talking about how he was nervous, it's not just a matter of him being nervous and finding it nerve-wracking. What's really important is, how do employers react to that, and how does their misunderstanding of military service and what it's like to transition out of the military actually compound myth that makes it even harder for someone like Chris to shine in the situation that he finds himself in.
Chris's ability to shine also comes down to something as basic as the language and the choice of words to describe his experience and how he fits into this new career. One of the biggest issues for the veteran can be the reflexive use of acronyms. Military jargon is filled with them.
I think the acronym kind of goes into the language as well, where sometimes how you would talk to someone in the military would never, ever be acceptable in the civilian world.
If they couldn't break down their acronyms, if they couldn't break away from that, if I asked them to, and that was a consistent approach, I would see a problem with fit. Because if they can't communicate with me, they can't communicate with my team or my clients, and that's too much of a risk.
In situations like this, being self-aware can be critical to success for both parties, where the business owner, like Janine explains, is interpreting the use or possibly overuse of acronyms and jargon as a sign of lack of fit. It's all the more important for the veteran to be able to adapt their language. It also plays into how and where a veteran fits the vision for the company. For Chris, everything is mission critical, mission first.
It's always mission team self, right? So it's always, we want to do the mission. You can't do the mission without the team, and then the team can't do the mission without yourself.
In the business world, it's self-team mission. There is a very different culture.
In Sarah's case, she recognized that in most workplaces, it's you and how you fit into the team and how you fit into the broader mission. How we bring people on board into organizations, how we treat them, what we ask them for, what we focus on tends to follow Sarah's pattern, right? Who you are and what job do you have, and then maybe you meet the team, and then over the course of a couple of quarters, you really get infused into the culture of the company and what the mission is and what the broader perspective of the organization is. But for Chris, it's all about the mission. For Chris, he needs to know what is his work in service of, and who is helping him to accomplish that.
I was, vaguely remembering, interviews that I may have done, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where that exact thing happened. Was the interviewer was like, you keep talking about we and us and the team, but what have you done specifically? We don't see it that way. We see it as this is what the team has done successfully, whether or not whatever I brought to the team, we look at, that's not important. As long as the team did what the team was supposed to do, we don't necessarily think of ourselves that
way. So what have we learned? Qualifying, introducing, and identifying great candidates isn't simply about a well-constructed resume or having access to a job board. Success starts with active listening and empathy, making a concerted effort in the interview to understand the candidate's background, the corporate or workplace culture they come from, and don't make assumptions about the person based on verbal or body language. Instead, inquire about them. Be curious. Lisa Taylor says one of the best ways to set the tone for a successful interview is to let the candidate know what prompted you and your team to call them in for a face-to-face.
If you can, from the get-go, let them know that, we're really hoping this works out, that's a much better way to start an interview.
Next episode of Hidden Talent, we're going to take this one step beyond the interview to what happens once a veteran has successfully landed a job. How are expectations understood? What are the differences in understanding of what it takes to get the job done and in what it means to perform well? Now that you've listened to our show and have a sense of the depth of the challenges and the potential solutions for hidden talent, we invite you to enroll in the masterclass for employer-tested ways to tap into the hidden talent pool of Canada's veterans. Find out more and sign up by visiting centerforcareerinnovation.ca at the link in the show notes. Reach out to the team at Challenge Factory with your thoughts, ideas, and feedback, especially if you're a small business or military veteran. This podcast is produced by Story Studio Network.